Hi, I have some theories about how the planar system affects magic in D&D, and I want to talk about it. So this video is based off of a theory by Wade Allen. I've linked his video in the description. Essentially, he posits that the inner planes are inner in relation to the material planes, with the ethereal plane acting as a buffer between them, and the outer planes and the material planes have the astral plane acting as a buffer between them. I have made the amendment of adding Ao into the center of this whole thing. Ao is the over-god of the Forgotten Realms, where he created everything, while the gods who live on the outer ring actually govern everything. It's my theory that Ao is not some platonic god who exists over there, but rather he is the central fundamental unit of the entirety of creation, right? So everything is actually expanding out from Ao, which is why Ao doesn't often manifest physically within these planes. It would be sort of like you doing self-surgery, right? No one wants to do an auto-appendectomy, and he doesn't want to show up inside of himself. So he's often silent and distant because he's actually fucking everywhere. Now it's important to note with this model that there is such a thing as the void. On the very outside the outer planes, you have outer darkness, effectively. And this is where your Cthulhus and your Aboleths and all of your eldritch horrors exist, right? That's why they're eldritch horrors, is because they aren't built upon the fundamental unit of Ao that all beings essentially are. They're totally other to anything that is generated within this plane. It's well known that you have primordials and you have gods within the D&D setting. So you actually have gods or entities from these outer planes, and primordials are those from the inner planes, and they have conflict within the material plane. This also explains the Feywild and the Shadowfell. They're sort of semi-planes between the material and the outer planes, which is why they line up with the outer planes, but they're a lot more dreamlike as per the astral plane. So this brings us to my theory about how magic works within this setting. So we start with Ao, the act of pure creation. He is both the act and the entity. This is the rawest form of magic. It manifests in the inner planes as a sort of elemental magic. This is where we get wild magic, because once it passes through the ethereal plane and enters the material plane, it becomes part of the weave, which is part of that filtration process. If it's not filtered, it's wild. Once it's filtered, it becomes arcane. Once it passes through the material world in the form of dreams and hopes and desires and sort of philosophical ideas, it is filtered through the astral plane into the outer planes as a divine magic. So a god can take their divine magic and imbue it back into the material plane. That's how you get clerics. And then the magic continues to dissipate out into the void, where you likely have some sort of eldritch horrors that eat on the last bits of magic coming out, which is why they would get warlocks in the material plane, because they want to be closer to the divine source of Ao. Hey guys, Editor Ben here. I would just like to say that even if you're manifesting the wild magic from the inner planes or the divine magic of the outer planes, it still needs to be alloyed with the arcane magic of the weave, which is why clerics and sorcerers are affected by anti-magic fields. If you don't have the weave as a sort of alloy to these things, you get something like the spell plague, right? Which in my opinion is just a manifestation of wild magic without being filtered, right? Weave collapses. If you try and use magic, it explodes into blue flame. So this whole process is taking us from the divine act of creation and refining it down to divine magic. Now you need the interim step of the arcane magic and the weave in order to refine. Or do you? I theorize that if somebody can manifest a sort of philosophical ideal that you might find on the outer plane and embody it on the material plane, they would be able to sidestep the arcane magic of the weave and become the filtration process from the wild magic to divine magic on their own. So how does somebody become a philosophical ideal? Well, by taking an oath or following a code. Namely, monks and paladins sidestep the weave in a lot of ways. By following their oath or following the creeds of their monastic school, they can take the wild magic, manifest it as ki or lay on hands, and move it into the outer planes. So in my opinion, lay on hands and divine smite should still be able to work in an anti-magic field, because the anti-magic field is manipulating the weave, but it can't actually suppress the access to wild magic and bringing it through into the divine realm. So the theory basically is the entirety of the Forgotten Realms exists within the body of Ao, and magic is just a manifestation of his divine act. All the magic is eventually dissipated into the void, which is how you get the eldritch entities coming in and trying to steal some of it. So let me know what you think. I know I violated some rules of planar cosmology within the Forgotten Realms, but I like this theory simply because it so well explains what magic actually is within this setting. Thank you.